Her parents didn't allow her to go to school. She had to work in the farm and look after her siblings. It's a little sad.
When you said that, it brought me back to the movie. I think this is the first adaptation with not only Jo getting Plumfield, but also making a clear choice to say, I want to make it a school. In 78, Jo still has personal life in the end. In 70, I can't remember. I think it ends when Friedrich proposes. This is the first time we actually see Jo making that plan and telling Friedrich, I want you to be with me, not only as a teacher, but as my husband. That is something that was different about this adaptation.
It makes me really frustrated because now you get people saying, oh, Jo was forced to start a school because Greta Gerwig lied to people about it. There's a quote in Louisa May Alcott's diary where she was in her 20s and she literally writes that in the future, when she has more money, she would like to start a school.
She is not the only one. When I was younger, before I decided I want to do more writing, I did think about being a teacher. The thing about teachers and writers, somehow they are connected. They have some knowledge they want to pass on. I want to talk about this film's take on Laurie/Amy relationship. This one, I think, feels in some ways incompetent. The problem I have with this one, and I think partially too, is mainly because people who watch it will get it this way. I have seen people sit there and go, how could Jo turn down Christian Bale? And I am like, you are just looking at it through Christian Bale as Laurie, but I thought he was a little subdued here as well. He wasn't as angry in the proposal as I would have liked him to be, and he was definitely very creepy. I just get so annoyed when everyone ignores the fact that in the proposal scene, he just outright puts his finger to Jo's lips to make her stop talking and mutes her with force. And then they still go like, why did she turn down Laurie? And I'm like, he is not listening to her. He keeps inserting himself, which in a way that is the way he is supposed to be. We are supposed to see that he is not a very good match to Jo. I am hitting this with Amy's and Laurie's relationship here because we have these nice moments when Laurie takes Amy to Aunt March and they have this really nice little moment where he is being very kind to her. I will take you riding. I will take you wherever you want, France and Paris. It is a cute little moment where Amy is like, I don't want to die because there are so many things I want to do. I want to be kissed. Laurie says, I will kiss you before you died. That was great. And the other moment that was great is when Beth passes and he comes to her. He reads the letter and he immediately thinks, I got to go to Amy. The hinge for me is the one scene in between that where they are hiding under the tree from the rain. I think this is where people get confused and have that feeling, oh, he is just marrying Amy to be part of the family. Because Amy does say something like, I don't want to be loved for my family. And she says, how do you explain your jealousy? Jo has met this professor. He is like, I envy Jo's happiness and I envy Meg's happiness. If Beth's had a lover, I would envy him too, because I know I am supposed to be part of the March family. Everything else around it, when they meet in Europe, I like that moment. It shows their maturity levels at that moment. But just that scene, I wished it was rewritten to be a bit better because I don't like how it was presented. I think that is why people have that feeling, oh, Laurie just married Amy to be part of the March family, because that is a huge moment between the two of them, which essentially say what his intention is. I don't like that.
Did you happen to listen to the episodes I did with Melody Ellison about the red flags in Laurie's proposal?
I haven't listened to all of it yet, but some of that I have heard.
We were talking in that episode if in this movie Laurie really wants to marry the family or Amy. I think it is confusing to people when they watch the movie, but it is somewhat close to the book. In the chapter when Laurie falls in love with Amy, he is in Austria. He is in Vienna composing an opera. First he is like, I will write an opera that is going to melt Jo's heart. But when he is composing, the leading lady in his opera becomes more and more like Amy. When I read the book, To me, that always was a clear sign that his feelings were moving towards Amy. Then he proposes Jo again. This is not in any adaptations. When Jo says no again, he doesn't feel bad about it. He does not sulk. He is relieved. The love he had for Jo was the love he had for the family. And the love he has for Amy is actual love for Amy. It is a very gradual process in the book, and I don't think any adaptation has managed to capture that. I think it is difficult to show that in a movie. Laurie grows from a very immature young man to this mature person. It happens when he moves on from Jo to Amy, and it kind of parallels Jo because she moves on from Laurie to Friedrich. They don't show Laurie's immaturity and how he grows out of that, so we don't see that in any adaptations.
We do get a moment later when he writes a letter. He says, "It is you I want, not your family," which sort of corrected it. It is one of those things where I think about audiences' selective memory. They keep focusing on that one. They want Jo to end up with Laurie. He just wants to marry Amy for the family, and even in that moment, he is holding a flask. So I don't know how truthful he was on that moment, but he corrects it in the letter saying, "I do want to make myself worthy of you." And when he gets a letter from Jo saying that Beth is passed, he doesn't read beyond that. He goes to Amy. Amy is still in France with Aunt March, and he bolts to go to Amy. It does correct itself, but I didn't exactly like that dialogue. I like everything around it. He is flirting with her, and he gives her the hair comb, and this is pretty directly from the book. She says, "Please don't. I liked it when you were more blunt and natural." Christian Bale I like as an actor. I don't think he got as much emotional part of Laurie as we have said about some of the other ones that are more spontaneous and have more temper, but he has more boy next door type of quality.
From these previous Lauries we have talked, I think he would be closest to Peter Lawford.
He gets a point because he doesn't stare at Jo as Longlauffer did.
It is funny about the proposal. I have seen a lot of people saying that 1994 is so romantic when they kiss and she's kissing Christian Bale, and then there are others who say he's so creepy in that proposal. It is not like in the book. First of all, Jo and Laurie don't kiss in the book. He literally threatens to kill himself if Jo won't marry him. Hello friends, it is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show. That is not in any adaptations. I don't know why.
In the book, he says, "I will hang myself if you marry someone else."
At least to me as a reader, it is always an uncomfortable scene. Jo is literally afraid that he is going to hurt himself. One of my friends said that Laurie should actually go to therapy. I think if we could see more of that in the films, people would not ship them. And I am still waiting.
I think this adaptation did a pretty good job showing the men's feelings too. Then we can go in talking about Friedrich. I think they did a pretty good job with him. I'm just going to say, Gabriel Byrne is definitely one of the most sexier Friedrich. He is not typically handsome compared to like Christian Bale or Rossano Brazzi or Louis Garrel and Ian Bohan. But you still look at him and go, you are very attractive. And his demeanor is so wonderfully calm and generous and gentlemanly. We have to talk about it because it is one of the best scenes in this movie, especially if you are a Jo and Friedrich shipper, the opera scene.
You know, one of my friends said this. This was a couple of years ago, and I had just started this podcast. She was like, Gabriel Byrne is an excellent Friedrich Bear because he is handsome but not handsome. And I was like, there never was a time in my life when I did not think that Gabriel Byrne was not handsome. One of the reasons why I watched this film nonstop in my teens was because I was obsessed with Gabriel Byrne. I have seen pretty much every movie and TV show he has been in.
I think we all have had those moments.
I don't think I have ever got over this. I will tell you a secret. I found the email of Winona Ryder's agent, and I sent them an email. I said that I have a podcast about Little Women. Would she like to be a guest someday? And I sent the email to some of the actors. If they are anything like illustration agents, they might reply me within 2 years or never, which is very depressing. But if I send that email to Gabriel Byrne's agents, I will not be able to go through an interview with him because I will faint. And it is the end of me.
That is so sweet. It is like you want to, but you can't.
You know the opera scene? Again, this was the early days of this podcast. I heard some people complaining that the opera scene should not be in this movie, or John and Meg making out, because it is not proper for the 19th century. But I don't really agree with that, because there are all these sexy making out scenes in the book. Those were already in the original material.
When you think about other stories like Bridgerton, which is like sexy in the lore, how is that okay? But this isn't. They weren't crazy with the making out. The next scene, we don't see them actually doing it. Now, it was very steamy on its own, and that was enough for us. So we have a nice build-up in the scene, what the opera is, and Friedrich explaining it, seeing Jo getting really into the moment. I love this bit, too, because, again, it is one of those things, because, of course, it would happen to them. They are getting ready to kiss, and then some prop shakes and makes noise, and that interrupts them, and then, of course, they get right back into the kiss. It is one of those funny little Jo and Friedrich moments that definitely happens. Of course, they would get interrupted by stuff like that.
It is very romantic when he translates what happens in the opera. He's telling her that this singer in the opera is trying to reveal their feelings to their loved one, and he's trying to do the same with Jo. And he does that in a very subtle way. She's already attracted to him. In the scene when they first meet, after they meet on the street, she goes to his apartment and they talk about transcendentalism, philosophy and books. It is not something that she can speak with Laurie or anyone else.
There's a real sense that this is the first time when she is really able to properly talk about something like that with another person. Someone pointed out a really interesting comparison. At some point earlier in the movie, when Laurie is getting ready to go to college, he is leaving all his books behind. I don't need all this stuff, but then you have Friedrich who says, when I was moving to America, I got rid of everything except my books. I cannot part from my books. They were like, that just shows why Jo is attracted to Friedrich. She is the one who tries to push Laurie to take all these books. She says, you are going to need them. And Laurie's like, no, I'm not going to need them. But Friedrich is like, I cannot do without my books. And she is like, I agree. That is one of those nuanced things that show a nice comparison between how Laurie and Friedrich do things, as well as their proposals. Someone did a gift set of when Laurie proposes with a close-up on her face where she is scared, but with Friedrich, when he is proposing and he has his hand on her face, she looks happy. There's a lot more visual quests in this film that I think I have realized. Good on Gillian Anderson for doing this.
Another moment that I do like is when they speak about transcendentalism. There are some moments when he speaks about leaving Germany and that the Germany he knew was gone. And I remember during the time when Little Woman was written, there was wars going on in Germany. That is why there was a flux of German immigrants coming to America. That was a nice historical bit there. Even though it doesn't go that deep into his background, it is still there, and I do like that.
I think that shows who he is. As much as I love my country, Germany, I will not be participating in this violent manner, which is why I always get annoyed when people go very stereotypical. No, Friedrich was never on the negative side. I have high stakes because I literally had grandparents escaping Germany. They wanted to have a better life for themselves.
In Little Men, the sequel, there are these moments when he could use violence, but he refuses. He gets angry when the students are fighting. Friedrich most definitely is a pacifist. I can't understand not wanting to live in an environment where there is a threat of war and a wish to have a better, more peaceful life.
Even if it is not exactly as in the book, I think the film has a good overall feeling of what the story is and its characters. Even with Jo and Friedrich having that argument before they leave, it still wasn't quite like an argument. Even though Jo says we didn't part well, I think definitely this ranks high for me. I will probably put it somewhere like number 2 or 1. How would you rank it?
It is number 1 for me.
All right.
That was our discussion today. Christina and I continue our chat next time. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and make good choices. Bye.